two people have made a return, Martha Kellner and Jimmy Kimmel.
Fanfare accompanying both announcements. Back on Trump 100.
You've missed nothing. You've missed nothing.
I know. Every time I go away, I come back and I make that quip. I've not missed much, have I? But it's relentless. It is absolutely relentless, this presidency. I'm Martha Kellner in LA.
And I'm Mark Stone in New York City at the United Nations General Assembly. More on that a little later as the city gears up for President Trump to make his mark on proceedings in the day ahead.
But first, Donald Trump has just announced what he calls the answer to autism. That's what he's claiming anyway.
So, Martha, it was maybe on brand for President Trump to choose his speech at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk to flag a date for our diary. He signposted an announcement on autism that he and his health secretary, RFK Jr., would make in the White House today. And so they did. Late on Monday, Trump saying that this has been a personal crusade for both him and the man he calls Bobby for the last 20 years.
I want to thank the man who brought this issue to the forefront of American politics along with me. And we actually met in my office, is it like 20 years ago, Bobby? It's probably 20 years ago in New York. I was a developer, as you probably heard, and I always had very strong feelings about autism and how it happened and where it came from.
Yeah, there are certain moments that I think will define this presidency. On foreign policy, you had that disaster in the Oval Office with President Zelensky. You had the tariff liberation day. But on health policy, I think this will be a defining moment for this presidency. There you have it in the Oval Office. Three male politicians stood side by side. President Trump, not a doctor, not a scientist. RFK Jr., not a doctor, not a scientist. And Mehmet Oz, who is at least a doctor. A long time ago, he was a heart surgeon turned TV host. So he was also way out of his lane. The three of them together advising women on what they shouldn't do during pregnancy based on what is inconclusive science.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary.
Yeah, it was truly an incredible news conference. I was struck, Martha, that neither Fox nor Newsmax, both of which are clearly, relatively, if not very pro-Trump, neither of them carried this news conference or statement, whatever you want to call it. They didn't carry it live. I thought that was unusual. Maybe that was a reflection that even they think this was off the scale, mad. But then he made this extraordinary point that he's not very careful about what he says anyway, at the point at which he was literally dictating what health policy should be. It was quite remarkable.
And by the way, I think I can say that there are certain groups of people that don't take vaccines and don't take any pills that have no autism. Does that tell you something? That's currently, is that a correct statement, by the way?
There are some studies that suggest that, with the Amish, for example.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point at which I'd like my president to be quite careful about what he's saying when he's issuing medical advice.
Absolutely.
So Trump and RFK Jr. are linking acetaminophen, which is the key ingredient in the popular painkiller Tylenol, to autism. Having said that, Trump struggled to even say the ingredient.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay?
So Tylenol is what we in the UK would call paracetamol. And on Monday, they recommended pregnant women not to use Tylenol unless they have a fever. And even if you do have a fever, Trump seemed to imply, try to tough it out. And if you can't tough it out, then I suppose you'll have to take Tylenol. This is despite the FDA saying that Tylenol is the safest medicine for pain relief in pregnant women.
I think the The point is actually even more than that. It's that it's pretty much the only safe painkiller that pregnant women can take. And now the advice from this elderly male president is don't take it, and if you're in real loads of pain, tough it out. I mean, it's
astonishing. I mean, there have been scientific studies for years about a potential link between Tylenol use in pregnancy and autism. And in fact, a month ago, Harvard University released a study with mixed results. They said it appeared there was a potential link between this specific painkiller, this ingredient in Tylenol, and neurodevelopment disorders. But they couldn't determine, and this is really important, they couldn't determine causation. So it could be the painkiller itself, but it also could be the infection or the fever, which the woman is taking the medicine for, which could be the link, or it could be a confluence of factors. We simply don't know. So decades ago, many people believed that autism was caused by one specific thing, one gene that caused it. But in the intervening period, science has strongly suggested that there are probably thousands of genes involved and that they interact with lots of environmental factors. So the fact that we now have the president telling women to tough it out if they can is not only irresponsible, it's potentially very dangerous, because if a woman has a fever, particularly in the first trimester of pregnancy, toughing it out could be dangerous, not only for the woman herself, but also for the unborn baby.
Yeah, Martha, I mentioned a moment ago the manufacturers of the drug of Tylenol have said that there is no evidence of any link. Kenvue is the manufacturer, and they've released a statement. They say they believe independent sound science clearly shows that taking acetaminophen does not cause autism. We strongly disagree, they say, with any suggestion otherwise, and are deeply concerned with the health risk this poses for expecting mothers. Because, of course, their point is, you know, mothers who are not able to take any painkillers could be at greater risk, and so too could their unborn child.
I think it's the confusion as well, isn't it? The fact that you're now going to have pregnant women worried to take that painkiller because they've seen this press conference, because it's the advice that the president is giving and the advice now of the Food and Drug Administration, whereas there are numerous scientific bodies who say that Tylenol is safe to take in certain circumstances. They're not saying, you know, use Tylenol, take it every day as much as you want. They highlight to women that there could be a potential risk of taking Tylenol too much, but it puts doctors in a very uncomfortable position now, offering advice which is directly opposed to the advice that the president's giving.
Yeah, I was trying to think the last time I remember a politician, like, you know, a leader of a country offering such sort of detailed medical advice. You'd think it would be your Surgeon General or your Chief Medical Officer who you would get to do that. I mean, I suppose during COVID, it was left often to the politicians of countries to make announcements about what people should do. Although very often, certainly in the UK and indeed in the US with Dr. Fauci and the rest of it, the Surgeon General or the Chief Medical Officer, they were there too, front and center. The only thing it did remind me of is the one time when Donald Trump did offer medical advice a while ago during his first term. And that was when he suggested that people should drink bleach in order to cure COVID.
I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Yeah,
we all know how that went.
The focus of this press conference was on Tylenol and the potential link to autism, but it wasn't just that, though. It also turned to vaccines. Donald Trump was advising, in his words, not to mix your vaccines. He said children should take MMR, measles, mumps, rubella jabs separately. He said don't give babies a Hep B vaccine. And, you know, I think at the heart of it is, you know, who is he taking this advice from? Is it RFK Jr.? Because the health secretary is an avowed anti-vaxxer. I have had, a heated conversation with him in the past about his opposition to the COVID vaccine at the height of the pandemic. He also seems not to understand autism as a condition particularly well at all. For starters, he's called it a disease in the past. It's not a disease. He also seems to lump everyone with autism in together. He has spoken about people with autism never being able to pay their taxes, that these children will never go on a date or be able to write a poem. He seems to fundamentally misunderstand that autism is a spectrum, and that is worrying when he's the man giving this advice.
So, Martha, big news in the world of late night TV on Monday. Jimmy Kimmel is back.
Yeah, this is an incredible turn of events because Kimmel's
really
suspension, it kind of felt like a firing, didn't it, rather than a suspension. It's also become this flashpoint for free speech in America. As a reminder, he is a host of one of the most popular late night shows here, taken off air last Wednesday for his comments about Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. There was a massive outcry from the left and even some in Donald Trump's own party, people who are not particular fans of Jimmy Kimmel, saying that the government shouldn't be censoring comedians. And I wonder whether that backlash has had an impact on ABC's decision making, because they announced out of nowhere, really, that Kimmel is returning. The Jimmy Kimmel Show is returning on Tuesday night, which is tonight.
Yeah, there was also this backlash from Hollywood as well. Tom Hanks, Jennifer Aniston, Meryl Streep, many others as well. All of them over the course of the weekend getting together an open letter saying that they were really very unhappy. Not unhappy, they weren't directing their anger at Disney specifically, but at the Trump administration for effectively, in their eyes, making this happen. And I think clearly over the course of the weekend, Bob Iger, the boss of Disney, and other Disney and ABC executives, clearly they've had the weekend to reflect. We know now, too, that Jimmy Kimmel and his lawyers were around a table with Disney executives, with ABC executives in Los Angeles, discussing what to do. And there's been a statement from Disney. They, of course, own ABC. They said last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. The statement went on to say, it is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after these conversations, we've reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. So there we go. It's back.
Everyone will be tuned in tonight to see whether Jimmy Kimmel really dwells on this episode, who he has on as his guests. He often has celebrity guests who he interviews. Who will he pick? And just how much will he go into all this?
He's not the type of character to back down, is he? I mean, I can't see him. He's clearly... There will have been conversations with his bosses where they said, so how are you going to play this, Jimmy? And he said, and he's not going to say, well, I'm going to tone it down a bit. So, yeah, you're right. Certainly tonight's show will get box office numbers.
And will he stay on script? And also, I guess, will ABC's local networks, so it's not just the national ABC network, they have, hundreds of networks across the country. Will they show the Jimmy Kimmel Show? Because that's been a major question here. Those ABC local networks are owned, a lot of them, by Nexstar. And Nexstar is currently in the process of completing a major business merger, which is worth $6 billion. In order to get that over the line, Nexstar needs the approval of government regulator, the FCC, and its chair, Brendan Carr, who is outspoken, notably opposed to Jimmy Kimmel and other comedians.
Guess who appointed him? Donald Trump.
And Kimmel coming off air was seen by many as Nexstar prioritizing their own business interests.
So I guess the most exciting thing, aside from hearing what Jimmy Kimmel says, is what Donald Trump says about it all, because he reckons he's a low ratings loser with a lack of talent. I think we can be sure he's going to get very high ratings tonight, at least. I just want to know what he says about Trump and what Trump says in return.
Mark, we know you're in New York. Tell us, what's it actually like at one of these General Assemblies?
I'm a bit of a Diplo geek when it comes to UNGA, as it's known. I really enjoy it because it's that one moment of the year where, in a corner of Midtown in Manhattan, the whole world is here. You've got heads of state, you've got heads of government, you've got their foreign ministers and their delegations, and they're all mingling around the UN building. Their missions, their embassies, effectively are in this part of New York City as well. And because the traffic is so bad, they tend to walk from their missions to the UN building. So you see this sort of sight of huddles of people sort of around a person who's clearly the principal. Sometimes you recognize them. Last year, I remember seeing Macron walking down the street.
Okay.
I saw the Irish foreign minister this morning. You see these figures, and then around them are their sort of, their key lieutenants, and then outside of that grouping are the security guards, and you can always tell them from the wires that go from their ear to the neck, and sometimes a bulge on their hip because they're carrying a pistol. So it's an incredible sort of vibe going on in this part of Manhattan. If you're a New Yorker, you absolutely hate every minute of this week because you cannot move. I remember watching the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, 3 years ago in his opening remarks. And he said back then, the General Assembly is meeting at a time of great peril. Our world is blighted by war, battered by climate chaos, scarred by hate, and shamed by poverty, hunger, and inequality. That was 3 years ago. Everything, every one of those things is now worse than it was 3 years ago. So, I think that just gives you a sense of the perilous state of the world right now.
This time round, we've also heard in much more depth, I think, than we have before, what a Palestinian state would look like. Although, as I understand it, those remarks not given in person, Mark.
Yeah, so this is the big story of the course of the day has been this decision by Britain, France, Canada to recognise Palestine as a state. You're right, the Palestinians in the form of the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, he was not here for this moment, a big moment, a massive symbolic moment. Was not here because the Trump administration refused to give him or any of his delegation visas to be able to travel to America so that they could come to New York and go to this event. That is not happened before for the Palestinian delegation, and it's caused some degree of unease. But we did hear from Mahmoud Abbas about what he sees, he envisages now for a Palestinian state. And he emphasized that Hamas, of course, totally distinct from the organization he heads, which is political rival to Hamas. It's Fatah. It's in charge in the West Bank. He said that Hamas would have absolutely no future in running either Gaza or the West Bank. Incidentally, it's hard to see how that would be the case because since Israel's bombardment of Gaza, support for Hamas has increased in the West Bank. So there is a challenge. He said elections would be impartial. They would be overseen by an international body, and that a constitution would be written up within 3 months of the war ending. What he didn't do is go into any detail about who might oversee these elections, or indeed who would be sitting for the elections, who would be standing for the elections. But Martha, for me, I was sort of watching all this unfold, and I kind of got the sense that it could have been a moment that was so different. It should have felt very different. It was supposed to come, obviously, a Palestinian state, supposed to come a long time ago, and it was supposed to be the outcome of a peace process, of reconciliation, of understanding, of coexistence, of healing, all of those things. Out of that, two states were supposed to emerge, coexisting, sharing a capital city. Instead, the recognition of Palestine by these key Western countries comes out of the rubble that is Gaza. It's kind of a last-ditch effort to save all the vanishing chances of a Palestinian state actually happening. Essentially, my sense is that these countries have recognized Palestine here at the UN now to kind of jumpstart the process, to reverse engineer it, to sort of realize the end point and then hope that they can fill in the gaps between now and whenever they manage to achieve the whole thing. And of course, those gaps are absolutely huge.
Yeah,
Even before the horror of the Hamas attacks on October the 7th, 2023, there was almost no realistic prospect of a two-state solution. And now, because of those attacks, the October the 7th attacks, and because of Israeli further expansion, Israeli settler expansion in the West Bank, the prospects of a two-state solution are so slim. So it is all very, very depressing.
And the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, due to arrive in New York at the end of the week, he has, of course, been granted a visa.
Of course he has, yes. And it's worth saying that America, apart from Israel being deeply angry that these countries have recognized Palestine as a state, America too thinks it's a terrible idea and thinks that it kind of rewards terrorism. It rewards Hamas. And it is worth saying that Hamas have clearly celebrated this decision. Yeah, so look, Martha, it does all feel pretty bleak and desperate. But if there is cause for some hope, I think it rests actually with President Trump. He may not feel like much of a peacemaker to many at the moment, but he does hold a key here. Over the next 24 hours in New York, he will meet key Arab and Muslim leaders from the Middle East and Asia, and he will present them with his latest plan for peace in Gaza. Among the countries he'll meet are Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, Pakistan as well. They'll all participate in the meeting. They'll listen to his plan. Some of them may offer peacekeeping troops, which is a significant development if they do, peacekeeping troops for Gaza, that is. Some may offer to provide funding to rebuild the Strip. Remember, some of these Gulf Arab countries are very wealthy. And crucially, all of them are likely to tell him that his Abraham Accords plan, that is forging ahead with diplomatic normalization between Muslim nations and Israel, that plan will not happen if Israel pushes ahead with any annexation of the West Bank. Now, Netanyahu, remember, is due to address the UN at the end of the week, then to travel to the White House. And the expectation is he will tell Trump that he wants to push forward with annexation of the West Bank as punishment for these countries recognizing the state of Palestine. So it's then up to Trump either to say, okay, fine, go ahead with it. And if he does, then his Abraham Accords are dead.
Yeah.
And the prospect for a Nobel Peace Prize and all that becomes far, far less likely. Or Trump says, do you know what, Bibi? Stop. Do not do this. Do not annex the West Bank any further. Do not continue with your actions in Gaza. We will continue to try and find a way to get the hostages out, but you need to stop. That is a card that Trump can still play, but we will see if he does.
Yeah, you'll obviously be watching that very closely, Mark. You're at UNGA in New York all week. Much more from the Trump 100 podcast to come.
Yes, we will be here through the week, back tomorrow. See you then. Bye-bye.
See you then.